Here is a story from the Reverend Dr. Jim Nelson, who served in Fairfax, Virginia, and Pasadena, California. Quote, "A woman in a congregation I served asked to come talk with me. When she arrived, she appeared nervous. I asked her what was going on, and she began to cry. She told me about a choice she had made for which she could not forgive herself, a mistake which she feared people she loved could not understand or accept. She kept it secret, and the secret was eating away at her. She did not know what to do. We talked for some time, until finally I asked a question which partly surprised even me. 'Do you want me to forgive you?' I asked. With tear-reddened eyes, she looked so intently at me and said, 'Yes, please.' I was not sure what to do. We were not Catholics at confession. We were UU. There was no sacrament of forgiveness to invoke. She had done nothing against me. Yet, I was her minister. She needed forgiveness, and she needed me to offer it. She was suggesting I possessed a kind of power I was not trained for, nor was even sure I wanted. But what was I to do? Say no? Tell her, 'Sorry, we don't do forgiveness.' I wasn't trained to forgive. No, I couldn't. I finally concluded, as her minister, that I could not refuse. And so I said this: 'By all that is sacred and holy, by the weight of the sorrow you have carried in your heart, I extend to you forgiveness.' I could almost see a visible weight lifted from her. She cried. She thanked me and left. She did not return to church for some time. But when she did, she let me know that she had told the people who mattered to her about what she'd done, and together they had moved to a different and better place in their relationship. And she thanked me for the forgiveness which helped her do what was needed to begin again in love."
Good morning and welcome to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Steve Walcave and I'm a member of the board. We invite everyone to visit our webpage at mpuuc.org to get more information about our congregation. Enjoy the rest of the service.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, much rise in this light, but hear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Please join me in reading the words printed in your order of service and shown on your screen as we light our chalice. We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are all one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, to live lives full of goodness and love because that is how we will become the best people we can be.
Time for All Ages Graduate Course in Forgiveness, Reverend Greg Ward. A seminary professor I once had in a class on pastoral ethics gave us probably one of the most challenging and most memorable lessons I have ever had. It started when he walked into class and he brought in a bunch of clear plastic trash bags and a 100-pound sack of potatoes. And then he asked us to talk about the pain of relationships. And specifically, he asked us to talk about the kind of hurt that we encountered both in our heads and in our hearts when somebody that we loved or somebody that we trusted broke a promise with us or left us feeling betrayed. The kind of betrayal or broken promise that hurts so much that we tie a little knot in our heart to remember it by. And then he asked us how many still had knots tied in their heart years later. And almost everyone raised their hand. And so then he asked us to do a little bit of an inventory. From the time we were born to the present day, he asked us to count up all of the little knots, even the little tiny ones. And for each knot that we still had in our heart, he asked us to go to the sack of potatoes and pick one up and then write the name of the person with whom we still had that knotty relationship and write the date of that offense and then put it in the clear plastic trash bag. We were then told that this was our homework, not only for this class, but for life. And it was going to continue through the semester. So we were supposed to carry this plastic bag of potatoes around with us and put them beside the bed when we went to bed at night, put them on the passenger seat when we drove to school. We were supposed to put them on the desk next to us when we were doing our work. And for some of us, we figured out this meant we would be carrying a bag of pretty heavy potatoes for a long time. But we were told we could take potatoes out of our bag anytime we wanted to. The only trick was, for every potato that we took out, we had to call the person with whom we still had that knotted relationship and ask for or offer forgiveness. and seek reconciliation. We began to understand that lugging these sacks of potatoes around with us was an incredibly heavy spiritual weight that we had been carrying. And we began to talk about how much time and how much energy it had cost us to do this. And as well, how embarrassing it was every time somebody asked to explain what we had been carrying around and for how long we had been carrying it. And to make matters worse, over the course of the semester, some of those potatoes deteriorated into a nasty, smelly slime, which just made it even more uncomfortable and embarrassing. The point is, we pay a very high price for continuing to carry our pain. Negativity is very heavy. We sometimes think that forgiving someone is being nice to them, but it's really about experiencing the relief of being able to take such a heavy weight off of our heart by turning it into small potatoes. And that is a story I thought was worth telling.
We all make mistakes. For example, some of us intend to send a monthly pledge check, but forget. The good news is that you can make amends. Simply write out those checks now, or use one of the other convenient methods described in your order of service and get your pledges up to date. Do it today before you forget again.
All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. And above all, and above all, is to have no fear at all. And above all, and above all, is to have no fear at all. All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. All the world is just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge, just a narrow bridge. And above all, and above all, is to have no fear at all. And above all, and above all, is to have no fear at all.
If we do not learn to transform our pain, we will most assuredly transmit it. If we cannot find a way to make our personal wounds into sacred wounds, we invariably give up on life and humanity. Father Richard Rohr.
The world is in pain, unaddressed, unexamined, unhealed pain. Sometimes from that pain, the anger and rage spill out to hurt others. Racism is like that.
We sometimes live like we don't have a choice. We have to do like we are taught, even if we are taught to hate. But we do have a choice.
2 weeks ago, on Saturday night, our Black Lives Matter banner was vandalized. It was slashed with a knife and splattered with red paint. When we heard, we started talking. We knew things like this happen, but we still grieved. We thought about what happened and what we could do. We knew we had a choice.
We are in the days of awe, the holiest time in the Jewish calendar. It's a time where people reflect on their choices that resulted in hurt or separation, choices that resulted in healing, in reconciliation, and unity.
We considered each choice before us. What message would be sent? What impact would be felt by those most terrorized by this act of violence?
Those who committed this violence project their pain. Threatening the well-being and safety of the sign was not the intended message. Threatening the well-being and safety of Black lives was the message.
We decided we needed to replace the sign as quickly as possible and order more signs to put up after this one. For each act of hate, we will respond with an act of love.
We are 100 strong here at Mission Peak.
We will respond with 100 strong acts of love.
We are in a time of choice, a time where we must choose.
We who believe in freedom choose a proclamation to let everyone know until Black Lives Matter, until our laws are just, our work is not done.
We dedicate this new banner
In solidarity with Black lives,
in the name of love and reconciliation
to heal the divisions of race
in us.
and in the world.
Amen. Oops. The grace of our mistakes that returns us to right relationship. What is it that gives us the power to forgive? That provides us the impetus to want or need forgiveness? What is it that makes the whole concept of forgiveness so difficult for some of us? Those hard questions are what I want to explore this morning. And as we explore, I'm hoping that our time might also bring some understanding to the religious nature of forgiveness. Perhaps what stance Unitarian Universalism takes in forgiveness, and maybe, who knows, even a little understanding about this thing that some of us call God. I'll tell you that I don't often set my sights this high for a single sermon, but I do so today because I know that the mark of my success will be measured not by how well I am able to reveal the truth about religion or the truth about Unitarian Universalism or even the truth about God. The mark of my success today will be measured in the end when I fail to adequately explain any of these things. And it will be measured by whether what I have said has helped you to forgive me and to know how important forgiveness is to me and to all of us. I want to start with an old story from my own life, partly because it describes well the struggle for forgiveness, but mostly because it reveals how that struggle can sometimes be funny and tender and hard. It starts one morning when I was 5. My brother and sister and I were with our mom on our weekly ritual of grocery shopping. Now, in our family, the weekly grocery run came with great incentive. Our family lived by the rule that every child got to choose one box of cereal. And we knew that staying at home meant settling for the cheapest or the healthiest brand. And we had no interest in being cheap or healthy. Now, there are many alluring reasons for choosing a box of cereal. But at the tender age of 5, there is nothing more compelling than the free inside item. This morning, I want to tell you about the day that I chose honeycombs. And let me be clear, I don't like honeycombs. Honeycombs, for those of you who haven't had it, is like sugar-coated perforated particle board. The pieces are so large, they will choke you to death if you don't chew them well enough. And they are second only to grape nuts in hardness, which means that if you don't let them soak for at least 20 minutes in milk, they will shear off the first 3 layers on the roof of your mouth before you swallow. Are we clear? I chose honeycombs for the free inside item. Specifically, there was a record lathed into the back of the box. It was the hit single, Sugar Sugar by the Archies. I wanted that record. Now, at 5 years old, I had no concept of delayed gratification, and so I attempted to consume the entire box in one sitting. Mistake number 1. I failed to recognize that any box that could accommodate a record, even a single, would by necessity be a rather large box of cereal. Still, I ate as fast as I could. I finished one bowl and I started another. Mistake number 2. I didn't let the cereal soak long enough. Somewhere during the 3rd bowl of cereal, I discovered my mouth was bleeding. Still, determined to get the record, I tried to cut it out from the back of the cereal box without compromising the integrity of the cereal liner. But kindergarten scissors and 5-year-old fingers are not the tools of a trained stealth operative. Mistake number 3. The cereal liner was compromised. A trail of honeycombs led to where I had shoved the gutted and leaking box into the back of the cupboard. And it was while I was attempting to flatten out a warped piece of cardboard on our vintage 1953 console stereo that I heard the ominous roar of the gods who watched over that land, letting me know that a great unrest was about to descend. Now, I want you to use your imagination for just a moment. And I want you to imagine the fierce winds of authority that rush through the household of a young boy. And I want you to imagine the look on his face when the realization that something he had done tipped the balance of calm in the household. And I want you to imagine the dread of what happens next as it begins to press upon him. Can you feel the alarm and the panic and the dread of coming judgment? But deeper than that, can you feel the paralyzing shame? To know these things is to know the lump in the throat that comes upon realizing that you find yourself on the outside of a circle that you have spent your entire life trying to live within. And you know not how to return without revealing something about you that feels unworthy. Now, suddenly, this may seem to some of you like a sermon about guilt. So let me be clear. Guilt is a very important and useful emotion, but it has been misunderstood and quite overused in religion as a tool to coerce and manipulate people. And because of religion's tendency to use guilt as a weapon, most people have decided to cancel all reservations with religions that organize guilt trips. The important thing, though, I want to convey here is learning to accept our mistakes without losing sight of our inherent worthiness. Do you remember in the book of Genesis, the creation story? One of the first stories of the Bible where God made the world and everything in it, and then did what? Pronounced it good. Take note that he didn't pronounce it amazing. It wasn't perfect. It was good. And it is goodness that we are made from, and goodness we are made for. It is unworthiness that leads to fears of being kicked out of the garden. It is faith in our goodness that leads us to ask to be let back in. From the time that my mom discovered the box of honeycombs to the time our entire family was gathered into the living room was only a matter of minutes. There were only 5 of us, but it felt like the jury room for 12 angry men. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister, and me, all sitting in a circle. My mother began the conversation. We found a box of honeycombs in the cupboard with a hole cut out of it. A laughing smirk spasmodically came from my brother. And we just wanted to know if anyone here might know anything about this. My eyes suddenly felt like they were tethered to a 1,000-pound weight anchored to the floor. I could not lift my face. and I felt the penetrating stares of my family on me with pinpoint accuracy. Silence. No one? My mom continued. Silence. We just want the truth. Silence. And without a doubt, the most painful silence I have ever known. There is a pain that I believe each of us knows. It is a pain that comes with being part of the human condition. To want and to feel and have faith in our connection to the people that we love, parents and partners and community, or even life itself. When something happens where some fundamental trust is broken or doubt rises up and blocks that assurance of connection, the pain can leave us feeling alone and isolated and estranged, separate from the very things that matter most to us. At its best, I believe that is what religion is designed to do, to help us transcend that separateness, either through love or understanding or courage, to cultivate some deeper trust, to believe that we truly are all one. But I also know how religion, as it has often been carried out, is associated with judgment, and judgment that has hurt people. I am sad for everything that has been lost in our inability as human beings to offer religion as it could be a uniting and healing thing. I am not sure which was more painful, being unable to say anything or being unable to look anyone in the face. But I kid you not, it was 3 hours that we all sat there in that circle without me sharing my transgression. After the first hour, my siblings had lost their sense of humor about the incident, and they began showing signs of open hostility and resentment about the fact that they too, the innocents, were stuck indoors with me, the obviously guilty party, on this great and sunny day. Even my father was getting wary after the 2-hour mark and began questioning just how long we were going to continue this charade. A week ago Friday, September 18th at sundown, was Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, the Shana Tova. It begins the days of awe, the high holy days of the Jewish calendar, which we are in and which culminate with Yom Kippur starting at sundown tonight and ending sundown on Monday. Its significance to the Jewish people is in the way that it offers redemption, the way that it provides healing and restoration. It is the day people who feel estranged or separate are invited to find their way back into covenant. It is a time Jewish people recast the covenant to include anyone who has fallen away. In the depths of their heart, anyone who wants back in. For those willing to choose honesty and humility over isolation. For the Jewish people, it is a difficult, tender, and beautiful time. No more isolation, no more separation, no more guilt or shame. Ollie, ollie, oxen free. At the heart of Judaism is a conversation, and it's a conversation that reportedly goes back to Abraham and Yahweh when Abraham was walking away from his hometown, walking away from his people and everything that he had known. And it is said that God looked into Abraham's heart and could see the feeling of estrangement. And so God, recognizing that pain, extended a promise to Abraham in that moment, extended a covenant. And the covenant was simple, and it was this: I will be yours, and you will be mine. And together we will make our way to a new promised place. It is one of the reasons why Jewish theologian Martin Buber describes human beings as promise making, promise breaking, promise remaking people. We are not made perfect. We are constantly falling short of our promises, and we are constantly being called to the task of finding our way back. That is what Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement or At One-ment, is for, to help us find our way back together. We are not interested in punishing anyone, my mom said. She said this several times over the 3 hours that we sat together. We just want to know the truth. We just want to be a whole family again. But I struggled to believe her. I was still stuck on this whole notion of judgment, of being seen as bad. And though I didn't know it, in that moment, I stood face to face with everything I didn't like about God. It was as clear to me that day that I would never abide by a God who judges, a God who sits at a big desk and looks over his glasses, over his ledger, where he is writing my name and everything that I do or don't do, and putting it all down in his book with commentary. I know that is a popular depiction of God today, and it is one of the reasons that I believe that religion has failed in its highest purpose of uniting people. But there are 3 things that help me get past such destructive notions of religion and of God. The first is an understanding of divine living that comes from Rumi, who said this: there is a field that exists somewhere out beyond right and wrong, somewhere beyond good and bad. I will meet you there. The second was conversations with my peers in seminary who also had problems with God as judge. And one night we all stayed up late talking. There may have been wine involved, I can't remember. But we began imagining other more creative images of God other than judge. And we imagined God as an activist who works for justice, or God as a nurse who works to heal, or God as a mourner in a cemetery who grieves losses, or as a writer, maybe even a humorist who just watches and writes down our funny little habits, or my favorite, a benevolent presence who is like a railway porter who accepts our baggage and then helps us find our place on the train. And my faith has been renewed by people who see beyond God altogether, who just see others in need and then form a place to come to because they know how much we need each other. A place where we can be together, where those who feel lost can feel found. A place where everyone calls out, "Ollie, Ollie, oxen free." But the third, and I think most powerful thing that helped me get over this sense of a judging God and a righteous sense of religion is something that happened when I was 5. We sat together as a family in that living room. Those people, my family, all sat there with the crushing awkwardness of shame and still a fledgling faith in one another that seemed too fragile to really trust. And they all knew that I was the only one who could set us all free. And waiting for me to do so was not only painful for me, but for everyone. But here's one thing I learned to be true. I believe now that those people in that room would have waited for me forever, holding a space so that I could find my way back to our promise. But it did not take forever. At the end of the 3rd hour, we held a secret ballot. Sometimes it takes such creative measures. And on a piece of paper, I wrote in orange crayon, "I did it. I lied. I'm sorry." And without even another word, much to my family's great relief, the circle of judgment ended. But for me, that day, a circle of love and understanding was cast that will never be broken. A circle which I have made a promise to extend as far and as wide as I am able to imagine. That is covenant, a place without judgment, a place where people are willing to hold the circle until those who have felt cast out are able to find their way back in. It is what religion can be. It is what religion promises to be. It is what religion falls short of on occasion and what we are forever being called back to. If you thought living with a God who judges is hard, try living with a God who calls you into a circle, not for 3 hours, but for a lifetime, and asks you not to judge. That is hard. But friends, the day of non-judgment is at hand. That is the promise of this community. To do the hard work, to love the people through the trials where we fall short, in the hopes that one day we may each write each other's names into the book of life. May we, for another week, strive to love each other that well, to the glory of life. remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for the selfishness which sets us apart and alone,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for losing sight of our unity,
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for those and so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
Please join me in reading the words printed in your order of service and shown on your screen as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, reach out beyond the artificial limits of your screen, of your house, beyond even this pandemic, and the fear and doubt that keeps us separated from one another. Reach out to the certain knowledge that you are worthy. You are a carrier of love. You are love. Reach out. In so doing, may we free those suffering beside us and call them to safety, to freedom, to at-one-ment. Ollie, ollie, oxen free, and amen.